Hey guys, I'm Latore and welcome back to the Goblin family. And today we're going to be covering some of our 14 and 15 Town Hall hit-ups, so 14v17 and 15v18. Pretty exciting. All of these were recorded and done during the July CWL, so there's definitely something on the line. And of course, quick disclaimer, this is the first time I've done a voiceover in a long time, and honestly the first time I've used my voice in a video in a long time. So please bear with me a little bit. If you have any feedback, let me know on either Discord or in the comments. And with that out of the way, let's get into the first attack. Alrighty, so for the first attack, we have AEGIS doing a 15v18 hit up with Root Riders and then the Giant Arrow and Backpack. So there's two things you really want to consider when you're planning an attack like this. Obviously the RC charge, which we have going right now, and then where you're going to get that backpack and giant arrow. So have our RC going in with the warden. Risky, but when it works great. A little bit more efficient because of the rage vial. And we're going to see we're doing this 6 to 12 arrow and GA. The corners are pretty simple. It is really easy to line up if there's a building. Gets amazing value. And then now you can kind of see that the base is split into almost an L shape, which is great. It's practically what you want for Root Riders because it's pretty free to keep them, together and packed up, which is what he's doing here. Deploys all the troops right next to the RC charge, which is huge, and a mistake I see a lot of people make. They'll get a nice RC charge, they'll chunk out a section of the base, and then they just deploy their troops, say like on this attack at 9 o'clock, and they don't utilize any of that funnel. So great job by him deploying it next to the RC charge. And another thing that I'm seeing here is this overgrowth. I'm going to actually pause it real quick. The overgrowth placement probably used to release some damage, but as you're starting to see, since it's in the middle, his troops are right around the town hall when he placed it. Where it is currently at, it blocks a scatter and an expo and then the fire spitter, which is great, but you have Monolith, which is pretty close, defense on the right side. You have King up there, it looks like. And then on the left side, you have the two multi-archer towers. You have that Tesla down there and the mortar. So what kind of happens here is your army splits, and you can see it right now. You have like the Queen, what looks like some Root Riders, the Apprentice, Warden, and then two healers going towards the outside of the base, towards like 8 o'clock. And then you have the Skywagon, RC, Duke, another set of healers all going up towards the top side. And if there's not much left, this can totally work. The issue is, you're splitting your army, so it tends to fizzle out a little bit more, which we'll see. But also, if there are some high damage defenses left, like you have Ricochet Cannon off screen, you have the Monolith there, Sweeper pushing back your Inferno Dragons, they're not really getting a lot of value. You can see that entire side that pushed up top is basically getting decimated. You had like 4 healers up there and you're completely down to 1. The Roaster's going and taking out one of those 2 final Inferno Dragons. So you have, your Queen, your Warden, some healers, which is great. They survived, they went bot, or they went towards that like outside. But, there was a huge push, and then after that overgrowth, half of it's gone, right? So you have a couple of Root Riders left. You have Apprentice Warden, actual Warden, healers, which is great. But if this single target Inferno manages to lock onto the Queen and kill the Queen, you are basically, completely out of luck. Because all you have is Warden, some healers, and the Root Riders, which are painfully slow. So thankfully, the Queen stays alive, and this attack is a triple. But if she would have went down, this could have been definitely dicey because I think there are about 30 seconds left. But still really solid as 15v18, and it was a pretty decently leveled 18. So, you can't critique it too much. Alright, so taking a look at the next base, we have a pretty annoying one. Like very heavy compartments that are like kind of separated, isolated with invis. This is kind of common. I see quite a few of these, and they tend to trip people up when they're hitting them, because you're not really sure how to path into it, and there's no like easy way to proc the invis. So, I mean, what can happen if you're doing an attack like Eoghan is here with, once again, giant arrow backpack root riders is, your troops obviously like they go to one of these compartments, or you try and do an RC charge into one of these compartments and you send your RC in and it's wonderful. Invis pops. This stuff is all gone. Your RC walks up or she walks down and congratulations, you really don't set any funnel at all and you waste your RC charge. You don't really get anything. Maybe you get some junk down here, or you go up to this side and you might be able to sneak the monolith. But now you have these two compartments. The invis will likely be back up unless you drop all your troops and deploy them right into it. So it's kind of just unfortunate. It's kind of crappy. There's two ways you can go about this, and Eoghan does one of them. You can either send your arrow and your backpack through, left to right. This would be easy. You'd honestly get pretty good value on this base because you could get both spitters, Revenge Tower, or if you want to angle it differently, you can get the Clan Castle Revenge Tower. Or what you can do, and what we're going to see here, is, if we get to it, actually we have an ice block, which I've never seen before. It's pretty interesting. The ice block is used to stop the RC to time out the invis. Sometimes people send like Rocketloons or a troop to proc it for you, but if you're doing like an RC charge because you're like Townhall 16 or whatever, that could mess up your timing. So pretty interesting here. Running the ice block, it allows him to get into this compartment, destroy it, and then just like last attack, we're going to have that nice L shape to path the troops through. It's going to be a little bit more awkward just because, there's a mirrored invis compartment and it's like so isolated. But we're getting most of it down, which is good. Half the recall. And then we're going to be setting this arrow, I believe, from 612 once again. Yep. And we get some nice value. Yep, Revenge Tower, one of the spitters, and then the Clan Castle, so that's amazing. And then just like last attack with a base like this, you want to go on one of the two sides of the RC charge, so that's what we're doing, going at the top, targeting Mono early, which is great because that thing is a menace. Monolith and Revenge Tower, like pretty much two of the scariest defenses and the ones that I like to get out of the way immediately if I can. So good job there. Siege Barracks up around 1 o'clock. Kind of interesting to bring just because there's not that much trash on the outside. Skywagon I think would work too. It would protect the healers a little bit more, and as we're going to see, a lot of the healers do end up going down. Invis Tower procs over on the right side, which messes up the troop pathing a little bit. But slowly they'll start to come back. Kinda hurts because there's no overgrowth in this comp. Maybe it's just an excess of totems, and honestly you can't bring everything because you already have recall, 3 earthquakes, invis. So no overgrowth. But the base is absolutely crushed. Still have healers, still have Queen and Warden. Bunch of Valks going through there. RC2, don't know how I missed her. And was able to keep that one Headhunter for a nice triple. So moving into the last attack, there's one thing I wanted to cover, a mechanic of, or something to consider with the Giant Arrow Backpack. So builders' huts, sometimes they're an issue, sometimes they're not. You got to be a little bit careful with them just because obviously they repair buildings and, I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. They repair buildings, and if you don't have max level backpack and arrow and earthquakes, even if you do though, it can mess with you sometimes. So as you can see, we have one builder hut here and one builder hut up here because the arrow is likely going to be going either here or here. And how these builder huts work is like the closest and first damaged, like building in its radius is what it goes to, right? So if you do, let's say arrow first and you go from 12 o'clock, it's going to hit the spitter. The spitter is likely going to be what it goes to. And what you do is you risk the builder working so efficiently, doing his thing, that the spitter actually doesn't go down. Now, this is more of an issue for like the Revenge Tower, the Monolith, and the Clan Castle, the bulkier 3 that you kind of just like barely break. If the builder or multiple builders go to any of those, you run the risk of them staying up on barely any HP because they repair it like above the amount of damage that you can do. So you have like 2 builders that are mostly concerns. If you can, either drop earthquakes, because you can drop an earthquake, let's say right here. Say there were like 3 builders huts down here, and you really didn't want them going to this fire spitter because it'd keep it alive. What you can do, and I'll clear this, 3 builders huts. What you can do is earthquake first. So if this is the value, if this is the area you want to get, instead of dropping your earthquakes right in the center and getting the town hall, which you'll weaken it a little bit, but you're never going to break it, you can put it closer to the center down here. So what it'll do is it'll tag the builders huts, but it'll still get the monolith, the clan castle, and this fire spitter. So the builders huts will then repair themselves, and you can send your giant arrow and your backpack through, and you can get everything cleared out. So just wanted to cover that because none of these attacks actually have an issue with it, but it's worth mentioning just because in your attacks you might be like, you know, why didn't I get this value? Why didn't I break this building that I know I should have? And it's because the sneaky builder huts that, you know, you don't always know of, you don't always expect or plan for, they can do that to you. So it's always worth looking at. One of the 2 things I check when I'm planning an attack, I will look at the builders huts, and then I will look at the fire spitters because they're a menace and they can destroy your healers. So here gets one of the spitters down in the RC charge, which is amazing. Never hurts to do that. Once again, going with the warden. Almost lost the queen. Well, almost lost the RC, sorry, but she stayed alive, so that is wonderful. Now we're getting those earthquakes in. The builder does go to the fire spitter, which is what I was kind of mentioning, but I'm guessing the fire spitter's HP is low enough to where that doesn't really matter. Dropping an ice golem, and then once again, like always, deploying those troops right next to the RC charge so that they only have one direction to go. Getting a nice little, it's either like a U or an L shape, depending on how you consider it and where your RC is. It's a nice U shape through the base. You have to be a little bit careful with the Guardian. It's kind of punching at the troops. Hasn't gone to the healers yet, but if it does, that's definitely scary. I'm guessing this overgrowth here is to try and push the troops into the Guardian, into the town hall, just to secure it. But it doesn't really do that, and then warden ability is used when there was really nothing other than long shot on the troops. So a little bit of a misplay there just because that warden basically protected nothing. He had 1 totem and long shot wasn't yet on the healers, with queen actually targeting it. So probably could have been a little bit more optimal there, but not the end of the world. Still has a bunch of troops because the Sky Wagon is absolutely broken. Definitely recommend using that if you haven't tried it yet. Insane. Baby dragons, balloons, root riders. Those healers are still kicking. We have Duke, we have Warden, and there is not much left in this base. Got 1 minion clearing that elixir storage up top, and it is basically over. Healers are low. Looks like they might go down to the scatter shot, but when there's only 4 buildings left, it doesn't matter. Once again, another beautiful triple. Alrighty, so for this final attack, we are going to have a 14 versus 17, and we're going to be switching it up because we have Fireball Rocketloons, which isn't a strategy I'm totally knowledgeable on, but I know enough about it. I know how it works. So there's like 4 major components. First one being Flame Flinger, and then we have, you know, your Hero Dive with like your King and your Queen. You have your RC, and then your Warden with Fireball. So when you're thinking about your Flame Flinger, as we're doing both here, we're multitasking, getting this Fireball in, something you need to consider is Expos, Mortars, and Heroes. Those are like the 3 things that you can take out your Flame Flinger. Beautiful Fireball, by the way. The 3 things that can take out your Flame Flinger and are like threats. So as you saw, he put an Ice Golem down, and then had to use 2 headhunters, but an Ice Golem and a headhunter with, I believe, a couple Rocketloons to get that enemy Royal Champion out, because that would lock onto the Flame Flinger and the Flame Flinger would never target it, which is kind of what the issue is. Couple here to try and get that Invis Tower procced, it looks like. Wasn't able to do it, unfortunately. It's really finicky with Rocketloons. You need to like keep them alive for a long time, and it's not really their specialty, which is a little unfortunate. Flame Flinger also about to go down. I believe that Air Skeleton Trap targeted it while we were looking at the Fireball from the Warden. So a little unfortunate, not able to get maximum value, but still pretty strong. Clear path for the Hero Dive to go straight into the Town Hall and take that out. We got a lot of value with Warden. He's still kicking on the right side. And then the super minions are clearing up the rest of it on the left. And one thing that you got to be careful of with these attacks as we're going through it, well, with Fireball Rocketloons, is you want to keep your Warden isolated. So once you go to like higher Town Halls, you get more spell space, and you can get like a recall to move him if needed, because he'll also just get melted if he ever goes into the center of the base. But did a great job keeping that King and Queen away from the Warden, because now that he's with them, he's obviously like not really attacking anymore. He's following them. So this is an attack that can either fizzle out pretty quickly or you just run out of time. So great job with those 4 components. We had RC at the top, which didn't even really get covered, but I believe she had Spear and Seeking Shield, so she took out the like north 12 o'clock side. You know, you had Flame Flinger on the left at around 9. You had Fireball around like 2 or 3 with the Warden, and then he worked his way down, and you had that Hero Dive right at 6 o'clock. So it all just came together perfectly. Beautifully executed attack. Pretty hard strategy, so kudos to him. And that's pretty much it.